Tom Campbell here. I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. It would be very much appreciated. The links are in the description below. Thank you.
This is from Laura, and she's one of the Patreon subscribers. Laura asks, who is the big cheese for us?
Well, the big cheese is just a metaphor for management at the end division level. Okay, now if you read the book, you'll know what end division is. That's that part of reality in which our virtual reality is part of that. There's lots of different virtual realities here and there, and they tend to have management because they have rules. And there's rules about getting into and out of those virtual realities, getting into one, leaving one, getting into another one, or vice versa. So there's rules, and whenever there's rules, you need management. Otherwise, the rule really isn't a rule if there's no enforcement. So it's just, the big cheese is a metaphor for the management at that level, okay? If you look at the books, you'll see I have a little picture of it. I have a little figure that kind of shows various levels and end division and that sort of thing. So anyway, you can get that, you can look at that picture for free if you go to the book that's on Google Books and look at it, because that picture will be in there. So if you just want to look at that picture, it's in the last book, Inner Workings, and it's about a third of the way through if you're just looking for the picture. Okay. Anyway, so the big cheese is a metaphor for that management function that has to take place at that level. And do you want to call that God? Well, you can if you want. I wouldn't suggest that. If you've got a traditional view of God, of the supreme being that is playing with his pet people, or the supreme being that is a caretaker for his people, or whatever your view of God is, the big cheese doesn't really fit that. I use the metaphor of corporate management. I talk about end division, and each division has its own manager. So whether you want to call that God or not, that would be up to you. I would say it's probably not a good idea, because that individual is basically trying to make sure that all the activities that happen within the consciousness system in his area, in end division, follow the rules and don't become dysfunctional. If they become dysfunctional, then he has to either fix that or push it up to the next level, which is probably the LCS itself, to come to some sort of decision. So the idea is we need a manager there that can tell whether it's all falling apart or not. Has something gone out of balance? Has something gone unstable? Is something in the system not working right? Well, we don't want to wait until it's too late to do anything about it. So you need somebody that kind of looks after things and sees how the rules are playing out and what's going on and so on. So the system doesn't have to make all of those smaller decisions. Let another level make those. Now, and generally the hierarchy is very flat. The management structure is very flat. As far as I know, there's the LCS itself, then there's the entities that are kind of in the big Jesus position, and then there's us. So it's not like there's a CEO and then vice president, presidents and vice presidents, and senior vice presidents and junior vice presidents and directors and division chiefs, and it's not like there's this big hierarchy. It's just, as I can tell, above us, we little IUOCs, there's just maybe two levels there that we would interact with. One would be the big cheese, and the other would be the larger consciousness system. But so that's kind of what it is. The consciousness has divided up some of its experiments into groups, and then a manager kind of oversees each group, so that the system doesn't have to look at all the details in all the groups all the time. It's got somebody else kind of watching that, so it frees it up for doing other things. After all, it's not supernatural. It's a natural system. It's not infinite. It's finite. It's not unlimited. It's limited. But its limitations are so beyond us that, it seems unlimited, and it seems infinite from our viewpoint. It looks that way, but it's not. Nothing real is ever infinite and unlimited. If it's infinite and unlimited, then it's just an idea. It's not real.
All right, thank you, Tom. A follow-up question: are we really changing the quality of consciousness, or freeing ourselves from the constraints applied to it to generate the free will awareness unit? Thinking to the example of the sheet applied constraints in the MBT trilogy. Consciousness quality could stay the same, pure and at its highest, like for she's quoting a Hindu phrase that I'm not familiar with. Advaita, Vedanta. But Om could evolve through the learnings of rediscovering itself. So, are we really changing the quality of consciousness, or freeing ourselves from the constraints applied to it to generate the free will awareness unit?
Okay, this is a question that comes up pretty often, and that is, there's two ways to look at the system. I prefer one, and I'll tell you which one I prefer, and that is that we are already perfect. We already are, godlike in our perfection. It's just that we have to get rid of the negativity. We have to get rid of all the stuff that holds us back. And as we offload all the junk, then we end up being our true selves, which is perfect or close to it. Very, very low entropy, right? So that's our natural state. But we've got all this junk that's attached to us for some reason, and we have to get rid of it to unveil the super low entropy us that's inside. All right, that's one idea. The other idea is that we are a piece of consciousness, and we have potential, but our potential can, we can evolve and become lower entropy, and we can de-evolve and become higher entropy based on the choices that we make. And if we keep evolving and becoming lower and lower entropy, eventually we will actualize the potential that we have, and we will be, a nearly perfect, very well grown, super low entropy being. But we have to learn to get there. We have to make good choices. We have to do something. So those are the two ways. Now, it's the second way that I like best, because it allows you to have very positive input of making choices. It kind of settles down into your choices. And I like the idea that you have potential, and you get to develop that potential or destroy that potential. You can de-evolve to where your potential gets smaller and smaller and smaller, I guess. Or maybe potential stays the same, but your ability to actualize that potential gets less and less and less. You actualize it less and less. So the potential's always there. So you see, it's almost the same thing. One of them says we have this potential, and we have to actualize it. And the other one says that potential is already actualized. We just have to stop getting in the way. And one person say, well, how do you stop getting in the way? How do you get rid of that negative stuff? And the answer to that be, well, it's by the choices you make. You have to make choices that, get rid of the junk. Well, that, they're kind of the same things, just different ways of looking at the same model, really. Two alternative ways to look at it, two different metaphors to use. To me, it seems more honest and straightforward to say, we're not perfect yet, but we can become that way if we make good choices, if we learn and we grow, we can get better and better and better and become more and more perfect. But it's our choice. We have to make the choices, and we have free will to do that. To me, that is a model that's easier to follow and easier to deal with than we're actually perfect to begin with. Totally perfect. It's just that somehow this negative stuff is stuck to us, because now you have to ask, well, how? How did the negative stuff get stuck to you? Where did the negative stuff come from? And why is it stuck to you? And who put it there? And why would they do that? You see, you have that kind of thing to deal with that's not logical. Why is it that we are, if we're perfect, then why aren't we perfect? What happened? And well, maybe it's all those bad choices, but no, that's not the case. We are perfect inside, but somehow that inside doesn't show. See, that's a harder thing for me to logically get through, because there's lots of questions then. Okay, we started perfect, but then what happened to us? How did we de-evolve to this? For me, it's more rational to say we start just wherever we are with potential, and then we can grow that potential, or we can develop it positively, or we can develop it negatively, and we can end up being more and more horrible and make really poor choices. But it's our choice to do it. Then, to me, logically, that makes more sense. It adds up better. So I've picked that. But some people prefer the other viewpoint. To me, it's got some logical problems with it, so I don't use it. But the point is that no matter which viewpoint you take, it basically comes down to the same thing, right? We need to make better choices, we need to be better people, and we evolve to being more and more low entropy as we grow up. And whether that's because you're starting perfect and getting rid of the bad stuff, or whether you start and you just have to develop that good stuff as you go, it all ends up more or less the same place. So it's not a terrible, whichever way you do it is not like awful, not like one's right and the other one's terrible. You're going to look at it either way. To me, it's a more rational to look at it the way I do, and less rational. But other people may see that differently, and go do it whichever way appeals to you. That's fine.
But we are changing the quality of the LCS by our choices too.
Exactly. The whole thing is growing. See, that way you start with something that starts small and evolves. Otherwise, you start with something that's perfect. It's perfect to begin with. Well, how did it get perfect to begin with? And where did that come from? To me, that's a harder logical problem to solve than something was just had potential. It could do this or that, and it evolved into this, and it had to learn to love. It had to learn to be low entropy. And now all of that to me is more of a logical process, whereas the other one is, magic. Magic makes us all perfect. We don't have to grow to that. We just are. And from there, it's a matter of, I guess maybe we're all fallen angels or something, and we have to get back to that perfect. So one of them is more of a belief-based thing with a big assumption, and the other one is more of a rational process. But I don't begrudge either one. Some people prefer the more mystical version that doesn't require a logical process, and if they prefer that, then that's fine. It all goes basically to the same place.
She also asks, is the fundamental process an intrinsic property of consciousness, or does it have to be extrinsic?
No, it is intrinsic to the consciousness, but it's intrinsic to any system that is self-changing, any system that can evolve. Then evolution, the fundamental process, is a process that it can undergo. So if you have a system and that system is self-modifying, then evolution applies. So that's the way I look at it. So yes, because consciousness is a system and it's self-changing, then it can evolve. But if you have another system, let's say a system of technology, okay? Technology evolves. Why? Because technology is a self-changing thing. You know, we have technology and it gets us to a certain level, and then we want more and we want to do things differently. And we build upon that technology to make the next technology. Technology doesn't just come out of nothing. New technology is built on top of old technology. It's extended, you know, and occasionally you have a new idea, but those new ideas are really extrapolations and based on the old ideas. You know, it's, you know, you might think, well, an electric car is a new idea, but, you know, it's the same idea that started with a horse. You know, it's the same idea that started with a cart. It's transportation, it's how to move things from one place to another. You know, that's the point. And then the technology grows, and all right, you got something with wheels, and now you got something, you know, a horse pulls it, and then you got something with a gasoline engine, and then you got something with an electrical engine, and the technology just grows. So it evolves because it's also a system that's self-changing. So consciousness is not the only thing that has a fundamental process that helps it evolve. Evolution is just an intrinsic property of any self-changing system. I and MBT Events hope you liked this video. We now have well over 1,000 hours of free video on this YouTube channel. Though these videos are free to our viewers, they represent many thousands of hours in production and editing, and many thousands of dollars invested in video and audio equipment, along with the required computers and software to store and process the raw video into finished products. So far, all of this content has been funded directly out of our own pockets. Be assured, we will always continue to produce free content. It is our life, our purpose, a labor of love that we will continue to pursue as best we can. However, those pockets are not as deep as they used to be. Thus, we are now seeking to augment our resources with support from our viewers. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. It would be very much appreciated. The links are in the description below. Thank you.